So, what was the most common cause of conflict in your marriage?
His jealousy of me.
His jealousy of you. Okay, so he would be jealous maybe of guy friendships you had had or coworkers maybe,
Friends.
friends.
Friends'
Okay.
husband, my friends' husbands, well, they were all, both of our friends, but sometimes we'd all get together. We always had, would play games years ago, get together, play board games, and, party together, dance, and things like that. And there were a lot of guys, and they weren't really, well, I didn't think flirting with me, but he was just a very jealous person. He's
Right.
not anymore.
Jealousy is a very common conflict I
Yeah,
think many people have in relationships or
right.
marriages. How did you guys tend to deal with that jealousy issue?
Oh gosh. It went on from the time we were married until probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It went on for a long time, coworkers that would need to call me for something, or he just really had a jealous personality. He was very insecure. He had a really hard childhood, and that made him insecure. And
Yeah.
so I understood that. So I put up with a lot of it. And
Did you try to maybe reassure him that it was nothing, it was just strictly work involved, or how did you deal with it on your own?
yeah, I definitely denied it and said, "Oh no, it's just your imagination. I, you know, they're just friends. You're just overly jealous." And um, I just had to deal with it and either put up with it or do something about it, get a separation or something, and I don't want that either.
Yeah.
So I just mainly tried to reassure him, and it normally didn't, but I tried really hard
Yeah.
to reassure him, and over the years, I mean, it's it's non-existent right now. The problem.
You overcame that conflict.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
Age does good things for
See,
you.
aging is okay, right?
Yeah, in some ways.
Yeah. Do you think that the jealousy could have been avoided?
Do you mean what did I add to it or make it worse or something? Like,
I mean, do you think that this could have been avoided, him getting jealous, or do you think, I mean, that it sounds like it was just his personality that he just, and like you said, maybe his childhood had a large effect on, him feeling this way. So I guess in that case, I answered my own question, and I don't think it really could have been avoided because it sounds like, just maybe that was just the way he was.
yes, that's exactly right. That's how I dealt with it. I knew it was his personality, and I understand why he was got that way. It's a long story, too long to go into, but just his childhood, how he was brought up. He didn't get a lot of, um, you know, good things from his parents, or telling him he was. They
Values and morals
right.
and
They didn't talk to him about life.
right.
They just let him kind of go and do what he wanted to do. And
He figured it out on his own.
yeah, but he was insecure, and so as soon as we got married, he was had that jealousy in him, and I just learned that that was his why it was that way, and I had to accept it and just ignore it, or try to,
Try
first
to ignore it.
try to tell him no, that's not true, but you know, if that didn't work or whatever, then I would just ignore it until it went away.
Yeah. What do you think? You obviously learned a lot being in a marriage with him, and after all these years, I'm sure you guys have figured out ways to work out your issues and arguments you might have or disagreements even. And what do you think is the best way to resolve a conflict in general?
Well, we, like I said before, uh, we don't hold grudges. We're not that way, either one of us, luckily. And so if we do have a conflict, then we both bring up why we're upset. And if we don't agree or whatever, usually by the next day it's just gone and we've forgot about it because
Yeah,
it's never a big thing.
right. That's good. So you guys were able to kind of brush it off if it was something that wasn't, worth dragging out and continuing to fight over necessarily.
Right.
Okay. How often do you think you guys argued?
Through the years, all the years. um,
I mean, maybe more when you were younger and less
yes.
now, or
Oh yes. When we
yeah.
were younger, it was more over the kids, you know, over the children. There were disagreements, you know, on things, and um, you know, I look back and think of ways I could change that or what should have done. I look down back and look at a lot of things and I go, well, maybe if I'd have done it this way, it would have turned out differently. But yeah, you know, that's the past. You can't do that.
Right, you learn from it.
So right, and you know, like I said, the older you get, you learn these things and you try to start practicing them now, you know. It's
It's
not
never
too
too late.
late, right? So,
Did you guys ever argue in front of your children?
to be honest, yes.
Yes. Do you think there is one argument you can really remember, and that was just a huge argument?
In front of my children, or just
Yes.
in general?
Maybe in front of your children and in general.
Well, to be honest, and I hate to be honest, but um, at one time when we were about 30 years old, and it was like he was going through his second childhood, and he left for a while, and um, he would come back to see the children, and we'd get in big arguments then because it hurt me that he left, and you know, I don't know if there was another woman involved or not, but you know, of course that crossed my mind, and so I would confront him about that, and we'd get in big arguments. He'd say that wasn't true, we just needed a break, and so those were the big arguments in front of the children, and that wasn't good because it hurt them, and I would change that in a heartbeat if I could go back.
Yeah. What was the outcome of that? I mean, did he obviously came home after you guys are still together, so he came home after that. It was just a break that you two were needing.
Well, he was needing.
He was needing more than you.
Yeah,
That was his
not
mini
me.
midlife crisis.
Right, yeah, that's what I said. It was a
Yeah.
midlife crisis, and yes, he did. Well, um, after a while, I came to the point, well, if this is what you want, then okay.
Yeah.
And when I got that attitude, then he was surprised, and all of a sudden, he wanted to come home.
Oh.
And I think he thought I was gonna leave him or something because I just got tired of fighting over it, and I just when he'd come, I'd just try to be nice and civil and like
Be the better person.
it doesn't matter, go
Yeah.
ahead. And he was like, oh no, and I don't want to lose my children and this and that. And now he asked me, can I come home? Is it all right if I come back home? And I said, yes, of course, but things have to change. And they did.
Good.
So,
And you guys were able to move on.
right.
Who generally started or brought up the conflict between you two?
I'd say it was pretty even.
Pretty even?
Mm-hmm.
Both of you guys? Okay. Do you think that when you guys would, discuss the conflicts, do you think that your point of view was taken into consideration? I mean, when you guys were disagreeing and not seeing eye to eye on certain things, would he really consider your feelings and acknowledge those the way you felt about the situation?
It would depend on what the subject was.
Depend on the conflict.
Right.
Well, overall, when you guys would have, maybe minor disagreements or conflicts or even big ones, I mean, would he at least take the time to consider how you felt?
Usually he would never think it was his fault, So I would say for the most part, no.
No.
No, he was always right, and
The blame was towards you.
yeah.
I can relate to that.
Unfortunately.
Okay. And what do you think? Do you think you considered how he felt when you guys had disagreements? Did you try to consider where he was coming from?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not all the time, depending on what the subject was, but
Right.
I did more than he did. Not to be that I'm great or the better person. That's my personality.
Right.
I don't hold grudges. I forget. I try to just forget and forgive, and in everybody, in all the people in my lives, or my lives, my life, and not hold, like I said, not hold any grudges against people. I'm just not that way.
Right. Yeah. How did you voice your opinion during these conflicts? I mean, would you go for a walk, or would you
No.
talk to him right away about it, or how did you have a voice during these times when you guys weren't seeing eye to eye necessarily?
Well, usually, at night after dinner, we would sit down and watch TV, and the kids would go to bed at a certain time, early time, when they were younger, and that's when I would bring things up.
Okay. So when you had your one-on-one time, you were able to voice your opinion to him?
Yes.
Okay.
He didn't like it. He's not one to
Talk
voice.
about your problems?
No, he just doesn't like it.
He doesn't like conflict.
No.
Well, who does?
No.
But some
I
people
know, I don't
sounds
either.
like you like to talk about it, and maybe he doesn't like to talk about it always.
Right.
Okay. Well, that ends our discussion and interview for today. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome.